Stockholm. Wedged between two breathtaking archipelagos, it has always benefited from a natural protection in the middle of an oasis of nature. Everything here revolves around water.
We have water and we have forest, a lot of animals.
Green capital of the world, Stockholm has a unique take on what a city can and should be. Stockholmers could easily give an ecological lesson or two to the rest of the world.
Today in the inner city, all the buses are running either on biogas or on ethanol.
City of ideas, in the land of ideas, it is constantly finding pragmatic solutions to the challenges of everyday life. Everything seems to be organized to make life more comfortable.
IKEA is one of the spin-offs of the Swedish model. Well-being begins with beauty and comfort.
Hyper-efficient and extremely beautiful, Stockholm is definitely a model city. And it hasn't forgotten its past as it looks to the future. Centerpiece of the Swedish economy, Stockholm is the largest city in the country and the largest in Scandinavia. Its location has always driven its development.
What was the city's main activity?
Trade. And this is, of course, because of the water we have. And the city lies squeezed between two waterways. We have this part here, the inlet of Mälaren, the third largest lake. And at the other side of the city, we have the inlet of the Baltic Sea.
Where are we now?
We are at one of the 14 islands, a very tiny island, Riddarholmen.
Is this where it all began?
More or less. Actually, it began more behind us, where we have Gamla stan, Old Town. But it started here. We already have a history from that's dating back from the 1200s.
Who were the first people to come here?
The Franciscan monks, the monks that came from Europe. And this was because the king donated the island to these monks. And they started building a church. And they were living here. These were beggar monks. But then afterwards, with the Reformation, when Sweden became Protestant, they all disappeared.
Who populated the city?
Yeah, not the monks. So who has been populating? Well, first of all, a lot of Finnish people came here, German people, Dutch. So it has been a lot of influences from all over Europe. Then later on in the 1800s, it became completely different because so many Swedes, they left for the United States.
Why did the Swedes emigrate to the States?
Maybe you think it's like a rich country. Of course, if you compare to many other countries worldwide, it is a rich country. But in the 1800s, Sweden was a very poor country. And people tried their luck in the United States, and they left on these ships.
Virle takes me to the rooftops of the old city for a rather unique guided tour.
So being here on the roof, you get a perspective of the shape and the nature of the city.
Yes, the city has been growing and growing. That's like if you now look around, you see how big the city became. Actually, the outside of the old town, all these yellow reddish houses, they're actually built on landfill. And here, just behind that street, there was a wall surrounding the city, and that was actually to defend the city. And there's one interesting painting in the cathedral, and there you can see the old town, and in the water you see fences, like a fence in the water to make sure no ships could just intrude. And that's maybe why we call Stockholm Stockholm, because these fences are called stock. That was all water before. Now, of course, we have all these cars in the motorway, and there will be, we have the subway over there. But in earlier days, people were getting on smaller boats to get to these islands. So the water was really a part of the city. Now people are using cars and bicycles. The bridge you see in the distance is from 1935. And those days, there were hardly no cars. So people were wondering, why do we need this bridge? But now we already have another bridge parallel to this one.
Stockholm wasn't always the green city it is today.
No, really, really not. The water we see now is just, it's like one sewage. You could smell your way to Stockholm. There were not real toilets, so everything ended up in the water. And it's only after the 50s here that they have been purifying the water. Before, the lake you have seen, this was called Lortfjärden, like shitty lake, and now it's our drink water.
How did Stockholm become an environmental leader?
A lot has to do that Sweden didn't take part of the First and the Second World War, so a lot of people, research, money went to the right things instead of the wrong things. Sweden always has been a research country, so I think it has to do also part with the culture, like thinking a little bit, not just in what's happening in front of your nose, but what's happening in the future.
Today, Stockholmers are known to be green to the extreme. But not long ago, the environment was very far down on their list of priorities.
In the 70s, Sweden was the most oil-dependent country in the world.
That's changed.
Completely. And the Sweden government said, no, we have to change this. And to produce energy today in Sweden, 10% is coming from oil. We have really made a completely shift of that.
Stockholm is now the reference in the rest of the world.
Yeah, people come and see what have we done here in Stockholm. As you can see, it can be done. It's not a utopia or something. We have already done it.
The most impressive result lies here, in Hammarby Sjöstad. This unique development was conceived for the city's bid to host the 2004 Summer Olympics, which it did not obtain. Instead, this completely new neighborhood became the starting point for the new Stockholm.
So this was going to be the Olympic Village, but we didn't get it. The overall goal was actually to lower the total environmental impact by 50%. And then we're talking about all the different aspects of the infrastructure. We're talking about heat up the places, what kind of materials in the buildings, how we're taking care of the garbage, what about noise, what about green areas.
It's interesting because it's like a city within a city.
Yeah, because the city of Stockholm, you see, was quite a big harbor city. And then the city said, why do we have all these beautiful areas with industries when people would like to live by the water? This is actually an old harbor area, which then was completely worn down. When they cleaned the soil here, they found 120 metric tons of oil and grease and 180 metric tons of heavy metals. So you can understand it was rather contaminated.
Are people flocking to live here?
Yes, they are. Actually, you see this old building over there? That was a lamp factory before. They started to sell these at noon on Sunday. First come, first served. The person who was standing at number 1 had been queuing at that staircase for 3 whole days. It's like to a pop concert, but they were buying an apartment.
Who lives here now?
A lot of families. Most children-populated area in Northern Europe, because here lives roughly about, shall we say, 20,000 people, and about 10–11% are actually kids between the age of 0 to 5 years old. So that was a problem, because the developer thought this was going to be a place for the empty nesters.
Right, so you didn't have the infrastructure.
No, we didn't. There was only 1 school and 1 day care center. Now we have 2 schools, and the 3rd one is built, and another 17 or 18 day care centers.
How much does it cost to build an ecologically friendly residential area? Is it more expensive?
Not much at all. We have calculated that between 2 to 4% extra the developer has to pay to do this ecological city area, which I think it's nothing, really.
Does it cost more to live here?
Not really. I mean, it's newly built, so of course it costs a little bit more than if you have an old apartment and so on. But if you compare these prices here and in the city, it's about the same. And now we have learned lessons, and now we're using these experiences to other parts of Stockholm.
And other parts of the world?
Exactly. We have roughly about 7,000 international professional visitors every year coming to our center and look how we have done it. They have set rules now for all new buildings in Sweden because of the experience of Hammarby Stad. Sweden has set up a target now that 35% of all the food waste is going to be collected. So we can make biogas out of it. We are also having biogas cookers in the kitchen. And then you have the newspapers is recycled. I think we are 93 or 94% of all the newspapers are recycled in Sweden. The combustible waste is incinerated. And that is actually then producing district heating and also electricity at the same time. Most of the apartments now in Stockholm are connected to the district heating system. And the fuel to produce district heating mostly is actually renewable. Their aim is that to be 100% renewable.
You have underground garbage collection?
Yes, we have underground garbage collection for the food waste, combustible waste newspapers, so it's transported underground to a house in the outskirts of the area. So people actually coming down from the flats and shove in the bag, and mostly it's in the plastic bag, and this is then going into incineration, and then it's by air, and the garbage actually going in the speed of 70 kilometers per hour. The funny thing is, you see, all the cars in this area, they have a speed limit of 30 kilometers, but not the garbage. If you look at the incineration plant, 1/3 is incineration, 2/3 is taking care of the emissions. When you see the smoke coming up from the chimney, 94% is water.
So it must be a huge investment.
Of course it is a huge investment, and that is one thing which we don't calculate really, what the effects of the environment. How do you put a price on that? SL, who runs all the public transport, for instance, in the county of Stockholm, they're aimed at 2030, all their buses should run on biogas or ethanol. And today in the inner city, all the buses are running either on biogas or on ethanol. And this is just to get the air in the city much cleaner. We have reduced the cars in the city by 15 to 20% because of the congestion tax.
So basically what it means is you charge each car that comes in to the city a certain tax?
Yeah, in or out. The election 2006, we had a test of the congestion tax for 6 months. And then it was a general election. And all the conservative parties said, no, we are not going to take in the congestion tax. But at the same time, on the election day, we had a referendum. And 57% of those people living in the city of Stockholm said, yes, we would like to have it. They didn't have to follow the referendum, because that is just a suggestion. But they said, all right, we do it. We are trying to reduce the cars as much as possible. We did a survey, actually, for 5 years ago, and found out that 79% of all the travel to work is either you walk, take your bicycle, or go by public transport. And at that time, it means actually that we had reduced the car use to work with roughly about 40%.
I heard over the course of 10 years, bike usage increased by 70%?
Yes, that's true. I mean, it has grown for the 10, 15, 20 years. Gradually, more and more people are cycling. Not only short distances. You have those people who are cycling every day 20, 25, 30 kilometers. The city is now actually trying to build even more cycling lanes in the city. Not only in the city, but also in the suburbs.
Life here doesn't just happen on land. The phenomenal archipelago, which separates the city from the Baltic Sea, teems with activity. To show me the nautical side of Stockholm, my Swedish cousin Lena has offered to take me out on the water for the day. I meet her at the market to pick up a few local picnic goods.
Smell of the strawberries, it permeates the entire market.
Knocks you out. Isn't that fantastic?
Okay. What do you buy for a typical Swedish picnic?
You have to have strawberries, small bottle of champagne or something like that, or white wine. And then we can have some fish.
Yeah, let's get some fish.
Let's get some fish. Ja, rinna, strömmingen.
Maybe 4 pieces, please. This, yeah, it's herring that's been fried and...
Yeah, fried and pickled.
And pickled, okay. And 2 pieces of salmon, please.
Anything else?
No, that's all. Thanks.
We're greeted by Thomas, an environmental consultant who explains that no one really knows just how many islands are located on the outskirts of the city.
Depends on how to define an island, but 25 or 30,000 something.
Many of the islands are not inhabitable.
They are, but you know, it's summer houses, many of them. But permanent living, it's 15, 20 islands, where you have the infrastructure, with boats like this, and you have a shop, and you have a restaurant, schools.
Does the postman come
Yeah, with this boat,
on this boat?
every day.
So you get the morning newspaper.
It's a lunch newspaper.
Where are we going now?
We're going to an island named of Ute.
Ute.
Ut means far out. Ö means island.
We're going to Far Out Island.
Yeah. 22 years ago we moved to Ute and we built our own house.
How many people live in the archipelago?
Year round I think it's maybe 7,000 people. But if you look now, maybe we are 200,000-300,000 people living out there in all the summer houses.
How far is the trip?
The fastest, if you go with this boat, 40 minutes, and then your car, 30 minutes, then you're in Stockholm. It's 1 hour approximately. For me, it's perfect sit. Go working in Stockholm, come on to the boat, have a cup of coffee, and I can answer some mails and do the things. And when I come home, it's close for the day.
Stockholmers are very close to nature. You have so much nature in the city.
Yeah.
We're spoiled with it.
And sometimes we are blind.
Exactly. You
live
live here, you just
it.
go to work and
Yeah.
fix dinner and everything, and you forget about. I mean, you have to, you know, look up a bit now and then and see what's around you, because I don't think there is any better place. I mean, I'm sorry.
So when we stand here talking about it, I can feel it now. Look around you, yeah? It opens my eyes again.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So what we have water and we have forest, a lot of animals. 15 years ago we had a problem because there was lack of fish. The cod, it disappeared and something happened.
Was it overfishing?
Yeah, it was a number of facts. So what happened when the cod disappeared, the herring came. And the herring in mass, really. And you know, the herring, it eats animal plankton. And pike and perch and the other one, they also eat animal plankton. So they also disappeared. Now in Stockholm area, we had 25 areas forbidden to fish between April and June. And that has shown good results.
Who owns the archipelago?
It's an organization owned by the state and other official community interests. They own, I think, 12% of archipelago, including water.
So the other 88%, is it for sale or is it anybody buy land?
I own my house, I can sell that house. But land, it's more they preserve land to have it as an open nature. To build house is not so easy. It's a complicated process to get allowed to build house close to the water.
Yeah.
And an island is small, and you have to, I think it's 100 meters from the shore you cannot build. And if in a small island, it's impossible to build because it's very small, yeah.
So tell me about every man's right.
Every man's right is that we are allowed to go into the forest owned by somebody. And we can stay there for 1 or 2 nights, camp. We can pick mushrooms and berries, and we can have a nice time there. it's allowed to do
You
that.
can even sell the mushrooms or the berries
Okay.
on the market afterwards if you want to.
Yes.
Basically, you know, we brought stuff for a picnic. We can go set up anywhere.
Yeah. But you have also to show respect. That's what allemansrätten is. You know, it's an open nature for everybody. That's why maybe we are so nature-interested people.
I'm Heidi.
I'm Anders. Mostly welcome to
Nice to meet you. This is my cousin Lena.
Hello, Lena. Hey. Anders.
We left all our stress behind.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful scenery on the way out.
Now you think you're hungry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just up the hill to the inn and we have a beautiful view over Mysingen.
We got the beautiful view. We've got the schnapps with the name of the island.
Have you tried it?
No, I've been waiting for you.
Thomas, we also sing when we drink schnapps. And you're probably the best singer between us two anyway.
Okay.
Really?
Helan går, sjung hopp faralalalej. Helan går, sjung hopp faralalalej.
Anders, where were you born?
I was born up in the northern part of the archipelago, Blidö, where I lived, where my parents still live. So I was brought up on an island, pretty much like this one. When I was 24, we bought this place, and since then I've been here. So this is 15 years I'm living on this island.
Full time?
Full time, yes. The summer season, like right now, it's very crowded, a lot of boats coming out. All Swedes have their own little boat. Or maybe not all, but almost everybody. And then you come into the autumn, then it's mostly companies coming out for conference or something like that. And during the weekend, then it's love couple coming out to relax and, well, make more Swedes or something like that.
And you want some more Swedes to populate
Exactly.
the 50,000 islands in the
Yes, we want that very much.
You know what I find so incredible? The fact that the Swedish people trust the government so much, unlike in other countries, that they're willing to give their tax dollars, where in so many other places people are reticent.
Yeah, but I think we can see that we get a lot of back from it. It's not just in a big dark hole that it goes away. We have a lot of things that comes back that are organized, that are function, and that's a very good reason for us to pay tax, because we get a lot of it back. And so,
For instance, a school on this island with 25 pupils.
if you're pregnant and will give birth, the helicopter will come and pick you up and fly you to the hospital. So we have a very good service on that part.
And is that free?
Yeah, free. Well, we pay taxes, but otherwise it's
Do you feel that the society here is based on trust?
Loyalty.
loyalty. Yes, loyalty definitely.
All the way up here, in the far reaches of Northern Europe, you could say the Swedes are a bit isolated. But their culture is very inclusive, and great importance is given to collective well-being.
On se substitue pas.
The individual cannot replace the people collectively. The notion of the collective is very important here.
C'est des êtres humains avec
The Swedes are like everyone else, with their qualities and faults, but one thing they're able to do well is to be considerate towards others. Things started with the functionalists in the 1930s, and then came the Second World War, and the Swedes didn't suffer the horrors of war. So there was money, and they were able to set up an interesting social experiment which was based on equal distribution of wealth. And instead of receiving little crumbs like in all other European countries, the crumbs were a bit bigger because they had money. That's all.
Il faut qu'on soit bien.
People need to be comfortable. Well-being begins with beauty and comfort. Functionalism is something that has remained with them. They need people to have fun. They want people to stay. For example, when you're hired, you're given an office, and the employer will ask, "Is this office convenient?" Because you can change everything. Curtains, desk, all the furniture, and they'll actually do it.
And the rest of the world, of course, knows about the Swedish obsession with functionalism through their flagship success story, IKEA.
IKEA is one of the spin-offs of the Swedish model. Mr. Kamprad began just after the war. He sold chairs. And then he invented the flat kit, the type of furniture you can take home under your arm. That was his thing. And he conquered the world with it. Not too expensive, trendy, beautiful, because it had to be beautiful. And it worked.
Et tout le monde marche.
If everyone has this mentality, it's obviously because it works. This is a hyper-modern society, but it retains its traditions. They don't just let things happen. These people are very pragmatic. They try to find the best solution at the best price. You know, a century and a half ago, Sweden was extremely poor. Around 1850 or 1860, the Social Democrats came to power and decided to really take into consideration the people. They discovered something extraordinary, which was this capacity to talk and respect others in order to better manage the society. Increases in wages, social welfare, etc. This is extremely important, and that is in fact what became the Swedish model. This model was born in 1931, and since then, things work very well, and everyone in the world is trying to copy it. But it isn't an easy thing. You need to be in a specific headspace to be able to do something like this.
One thing's for sure. Foreigners doing business with the Swedes must inevitably adapt to this unique model, which can, more often than not, make things a bit complicated.
Business people who come here from around the world are always surprised. They ask, "Who is my equivalent here? Who do I speak to?" The answer is no one. Things here are done differently, collectively. If a single person involved in a project doesn't agree, people are afraid they'll lose control. So it's imperative that everyone is convinced of the project. And that's why there are meetings after meetings after meetings. Everyone has to agree with everyone else.
And to sum up the Swedish way of doing things, one word says it all. Lagom.
Lagom. Ah, that's an extraordinary word. It means neither too much nor too little. It's possibly the only Swedish word that can't be translated into any other language. And it defines the Swedish spirit. That is to say, everything should be done in moderation. You want to eat? It should be neither too salty nor too sweet. Things like that. It's become a kind of leitmotif in this country. We are the Lagom country. It's all about being neutral. The father of neutrality in this country was Bernadotte, who was a marshal under Napoleon. What is neutral? Neutrality means that we take care of our own, but we don't want problems for others, and everything has to be good for everyone. For example, during the Second World War, Sweden was neutral. They endured war economically, but not physically. Yet they let the Germans through to invade Norway and to conquer Finland, etc. Today they're still neutral, that is to say they have no alliances with other countries when there is a conflict, but only when there is a conflict.
Hub of design, fashion, and visual arts, the city has become a high-demand destination. And everyone wants to find a spot in the elegant district of Södermalm.
Historically, Södermalm is the workers' part of town. But nowadays, I would say it's the creators' part of town, or creatives, like people working in PR and advertising and that kind of stuff. Lives here in quite expensive apartments nowadays and enjoy having dinner in restaurants at night. So if you sit outside a cafe and you just have a look at people passing, it's almost like you feel you're part of a catwalk, except the fact that everyone looks the same.
Stockholm is not very big, and there is a lack of living space.
Yeah, for sure.
People are waiting for years on lists to get an apartment.
Yeah, and there's a lot of strategies to like how to come around the problem. I moved to Malmö, in the very south of Sweden, and there it's not that hard to get an apartment. So I did, and then I swapped it for an apartment here, because that apartment was a really nice one. So I could swap it for an okay apartment here. And I actually would guess that that would be a faster way to get an apartment than to actually put your name on a list in Stockholm in the first place.
But it's true that people wait for years and years to get an apartment?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to live like closer to town, you must count on, I would guess, 10 to 15 years to get an apartment.
That is insane.
Yeah.
How are these lists composed? Who runs the operation?
There are several of what you can call like city or governmental owned, I guess, housing companies that you can turn to and say, hey, I would like an apartment. And you put your list and you pay a monthly smaller amount to like stay on the list.
Really?
And then when 10 years pass, they call you and say, hey, we have an apartment to offer you. So that's basically it.
Do you have a chance to go look at it, or you have to say yes right away?
I think you have a chance to go look at it, and you can also say no thanks and stay on the list.
If you really, really want an apartment here in Stockholm, what do you do? If you don't want to wait for 10 years, let's say.
Yeah, and if you don't have the money to buy an apartment, then you could maybe afford to go into the black market and buy a contract for a rentable place. So that is something you could do, actually.
They sell contracts on the black market?
Yeah, for rentable places. So that ends up not an apartment that you own, but a place where you can't be kicked out of if you handle things smoothly, at least.
And you'd imagine there's a lot of construction to build new housing developments.
Yeah, you could really wish for that to be happening, but there's a lot of other kind of construction going on, but not that much for the people who really need the apartments, like students and people with smaller families with not that like super great incomes who are looking for smaller, affordable places. It's like there's nothing to find really.
How much could it cost to rent an apartment in this area?
Like a small apartment, like one-room apartment on maybe, let's say, 35 square meters is around 5,000 Swedish kroner. So it's about 500 euro. Among my friends, I would have a guess that about 20%, maybe 10 to 20%, rent an apartment that they have the right to keep on renting as long as they want to. Then maybe something about 30% owns an apartment that they have chosen to buy. And then the remaining 50%, I would guess, are people who are renting apartments that they don't have the right to rent, that someone else have the right to rent. So they are more or less borrowing it for 2 months or 6 months or a year or whatever, because someone is going to India for half a year or trying another job in another city for 3 months or whatever. So these people keep on moving from apartment to apartment every 6 months.
So that's how they live, the apartment hop.
Yeah, exactly, and that's also what people who moves here are prepared to keep on doing. It's like part of the game before someone eventually chooses to stay in India. Then you might be able to stay in the apartment as well.
So people all over the world are not just talking about Södermalm and Stockholm, but also about your project, Lunchbeat.
Yeah. It started as a reaction to a challenge, I guess, I was facing between my two passions, a passion for working really hard and dancing really hard, and the fact that those two doesn't always go super good together. So then I thought, what if we could make that great club experience part of your daily working week, and could it maybe actually bring something to the energy you have at work, etc. And so it started out in a garage with 14 friends of mine who just tried out to dance for an hour, an ordinary working day Tuesday.
At lunchtime?
Yeah. And for me it was kind of it, but then after maybe an hour the texts started coming like, hey, that was so great, when's the next time? I think last event we were almost 700 people.
And so tell me about a typical Lunchbeat.
There's a live DJ, there's 1 hour exactly of time. We don't serve alcohol, but instead you have a takeaway lunch as part of the entrance or as part of the experience.
Lunchbeat is a great example of Stockholm's openness. And Molly's local project has now grown into an international movement.
In Sweden, I think it's in about 10 cities. And globally, I think we count about 45 more. With a concentration in Europe, but also with clubs starting up in the US, as in New York and San Francisco and Houston.
A few kilometers from the city center, there is the other Stockholm, the one inhabited by the countless foreign workers who originally came here to build the city. The Million program, established in 1965 by the Swedish Social Democratic Workers' Party, aimed at creating 1 million homes to ensure affordable housing for all.
In the 60s, there was a huge wave of immigration here, because another big idea of the Swedish model is the people's house, folkhemmet. And you would see that Sweden is like a big family, and it's like a big house. And it was really built in the 60s and 70s. And the ones that built it was really the immigrants. Then many of them felt like, all right, we built the house, but we're not really let in to the house. This is a pretty, you could say, famous part of the city, because this is where the Million program started. First houses were built here in Bredäng. The idea with the immigration at first was like, these are guest workers. We need people to build the society and then they go back to their... But it didn't turn out that way. Once the guest workers stopped being guests and all wanted to stay here and get kids here, where should they live? So the more immigrants that started living in the areas, the less the middle class wanted to live there. So what's happened is that higher concentration of immigrants here, although Bredäng is pretty mixed still. And then you have all the stereotypes about these areas, about that it's some kind of a ghetto, it's the projects and all. But for me, this is my Sweden, and this is Sweden's future, really. So I've chosen to live here.
How is the population of Sweden divided ethnically?
In Stockholm, more than a third isn't born in Sweden, and 2/3 isn't born in Stockholm. So Stockholm is really built of people moving in from the other cities of Sweden and also from the rest of the world. The perception of Swedes being like blonde, a guy will pass you that's like the perception of how a Swede looks like. You know, tall, pretty blonde, blue-eyed, and that is actually a minority right now. He's a minority, and the majority is what you will see here. Now that's my house, so I live on the 3rd floor there. So this is like one part of Bredäng, and then you'll get into this. And when media comes here to shoot, they only shoot that, and they shoot the graffiti. They never shoot these areas. They never turn the camera to see that it's pretty mixed. This is also the suburbs. This is also the project. Liam, hi. Tja, hur är det bra? Tja, man. Det är bra. Kul att se dig. This guy,
Hello, I'm Heidi.
This guy is, you're half Irish, aren't you?
Half Irish,
yeah. A lot of people, I think, from these areas feel some kind of pride and they want to do something about their neighborhood, and we're happy that Liam lives here. And, I mean, he's 15 and he's helping kids, as he says, but they're like his age.
Doesn't matter if your parents from Sweden or from Afghanistan. If you're from a lower middle class or working class background, you're not encouraged through media as a young person to read books and to educate yourself. They won't teach you how to help young people or anyone in a difficult situation in your community.
Well, Liam, keep up the good work.
Do my best.
The farther we go towards the water, the richer the people will get. Some of the richest people in Stockholm live just, a stone's throw away. And Bredäng and that area is one of the sharpest, borders between rich and poor. There are a lot of myths about Sweden, that we have the best welfare system in the world, we have the most open immigration policy in the world, but those are becoming more and more myths. It was like that once, but refugees have a really tough time here in Sweden. It's getting harder and harder to get in, and once you're in, it's getting harder and harder to get a permit to stay. So a lot of people are sent back.
Very often the immigrants have very educated background, and the system is not tapping into that.
I mean, my father is the perfect example of that both my parents, actually. My father has a master's degree in economics, my mother in English, and none of them has gotten the jobs that they deserve. So my father's a taxi driver, and I think that Sweden has the highest, most educated taxi drivers in the world. So just talk to any taxi driver and ask them about their lives and their history, and you'll hear that you have surgeons, you have like PhDs, you have all of these people driving taxis. There are too many boundaries for people to actually contribute the way that they want to.
If the non-native Swedish represent 1/3 of the population, how could they be heard?
Well, the thing is that Swedes don't make babies. I mean, it's one of the lowest birth rates in the world. And our prior prime minister actually said to the Swedes, come on, make babies. This isn't going to work. And at the same time, people are getting older and older. So the system won't work if we don't have more immigration. Because who's going to take care of the old? And the taxes that has to come in to pay for the old, they won't come in. I mean, so it's inevitable. It has to be more immigration, and this will, of course, shift. I mean, the 1/3 would soon become more than half. You have to choose, Are you going to embrace this and see this as a positive thing that will enrich your country, or is this a threat? If the politician doesn't take this seriously, I mean, the ones that pose this as a threat will grow, and that's what you're seeing all over Europe.
Do you encounter racism here?
Yeah, definitely, especially with employment. If you look at the statistics, it's much more difficult to get a job if you have a strange name. But it's much more hidden and it's subtle, so it's hard to, point at, but it's there, definitely. My parents fought for this society in Iran. They saw their dream come true when they came here. I've been trying to show a new way, and our parents have, really sacrificed everything that they have to give us the opportunity they never did. And I love Sweden, I love Stockholm, and I want to contribute to make it the best place in the world. I think I just have to be what I'm talking about, be that positive force to try to change instead of, being bitter and angry.
The inhabitants of Stockholm are pragmatic, innovative, and open. The city itself is a marvel of originality and inspiration. Decision makers from around the world should try and follow the example of this resourceful and respectful society. Stockholm's solution-oriented thinking and its focus on comfort and inclusion could inspire a better tomorrow for all.